President Nicolas Maduro should tell the U.S. to give the aid to Colombia's International Red Cross, and then Colombia's International Red Cross can distribute it to Venezuela if the aid is needed. Maduro accepts aid from the International Committee of the Red Cross, so this is a solution if the U.S. really wants to help. And the U.S. needs to end the sanctions too, and stop the economic warfare against Venezuela. President Maduro was democratically elected last year in an election that was considered legitimate by 4 international observer groups. Please use the YouTube tools to share this video with everyone you can and to share this tweet with everyone you can. I'll put a link to this tweet in the video description.
Deputy Clare Daly.
So I think that we can both agree that the situation in Venezuela is a very difficult one. The economy is in crisis. The people are divided. And while the Taoiseach believes the Donald Trump narrative that this is because of a failure of socialism, I'm personally more inclined to believe the UN Special Rapporteur, Alfred de Zayas, who made an extended visit to Venezuela late last year and is in fact an international law expert. And he blames the illegal US sanctions, which he says have caused many deaths, have directly and indirectly aggravated the shortage of medicines, including insulin, are crimes against humanity which should be referred to the International Criminal Court. Strong words from a renowned expert. But, you know, even if we don't agree on the causes of the problems, I'm sure you would agree that Venezuela is not the only divided country with economic problems. But it is the only one where there is an unelected, self-proclaimed president who has been recognised as a head of state without any basis in law, including by Ireland. It is the only one where the US military are presently circling and landing, we believe, in the Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico and in Colombia under the guise of delivering humanitarian aid. In a situation that is eerily like the weapons of mass destruction lie that was used to sell the Iraq war, on a continent where humanitarian aid has been used as a cover for death squads by the same Elliot Abrams who is now at the head of the US operation in Venezuela. Taoiseach, this is an incredibly serious situation. You don't need to be a genius to work out that the humanitarian aid narrative is just a Trojan horse. Even the official organisations, the International Red Cross and the UN, want nothing to do with it. It's not aid, it's a provocation, it's a cover for military intervention and regime change. So the question for us is, are we going to go along with the herd, say nothing, wring our hands afterwards and say, oh, if only we'd known? Or are we going to speak out now and add our voices to those opposing military aggression and intervention, for respecting the sovereignty of Venezuela and to assist them in resolving their differences through dialogue and respect for international law? Surely that's what a neutral country should be doing. Anything less is a facilitation of the latest resource war. We know Venezuela has the largest oil resources in the world. We know because Trump and Bolton have told us that they're in discussions with American oil companies to take the oil of the Venezuelan people. We know they've wanted that for a long time. We know they tried to overthrow Chavez. We know the sanctions followed that up. But this is a turning point. And we know, Taoiseach, what happens next. Look at Libya, look at Iraq, look at Syria. Donald Trump says Nicaragua and Cuba are next. Taoiseach, please, are we going to stay silent, or are we going to speak out against US military aggression and intervention and in defence of international law?
But let me reiterate, Ireland will not support military intervention in this case, and do not support it, and have been vocal in our concerns in relation to that area.
Deputy Daly.
Taoiseach, the Carter Centre and others have recognised that the elections in Venezuela were democratic, but there's a certain irony in people being concerned about the elections in Venezuela, but they've no problems whatsoever with actual dictators in place like Egypt or Saudi Arabia. This is not about democracy, and you didn't in any way address the points I made, that the situation has moved on. Since the backing of Guaido, following on from the US, The situation has changed on the ground. There are troops amassing on the borders of Venezuela under the guise of humanitarian aid. Now, this is a country that needs humanitarian aid. This is a young girl, a 12-year-old Yemenese girl who's starving. She weighs 22 pounds. There needs to be a humanitarian intervention in Yemen, but there can't be because the Americans are blocking the Saudis. Now, I'm not arguing for a military intervention into Saudi Arabia. What I am arguing for is the respect of international law. And in a very short space of time, we will be in a situation where the fate of peoples, not just in Venezuela, but in Nicaragua and in Cuba and throughout Latin America, will be seriously undermined in what is a resource war. And Taoiseach, I haven't heard you saying anything about that. The situation has moved on and it's getting incredibly dangerous.
I want to say these people are fraud. They don't represent the Venezuelan people. They are representing the U.S. orchestrated coup. This is a very dangerous situation. They want to create a crisis at the border that would be a justification for U.S. intervention. This has nothing to do with a humanitarian situation. Indeed, for a humanitarian situation, the U.S. would lift the economic sanctions that have exacerbated the crisis. The issue at the border now is something that is politicizing humanitarian aid. That is why the Red Cross, the United Nations, and all the legitimate humanitarian groups have insisted that they will not touch this aid. What we need now is negotiations. These people here want to take Venezuela to a path of civil war and U.S. intervention. What the Venezuelan people need is negotiations mediated by Mexico, I'm almost finished, mediated by Mexico, by the Uruguayans, and by the Vatican. So let's say that if you indeed care about the people of Venezuela, you will be calling for negotiations. You will not recognize these people who are willing pawns in a Trump-orchestrated coup d'etat. Thank you for listening to the voice of reason. Gracias.
See the truth.
Gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Well, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, you already expressed your ideas, and that's fine.
Promote the video and the tweet to get this message out. Send it out to President Nicolas Maduro.
The next passage down in the book has been, I think, ignored just by about everyone who's talked to you about it. The president says to the briefer that he wants to have a war with Venezuela, and this is in 2017. The next passage down in the book has been, I think, ignored just by about everyone who's talked to you about it. The president says to the briefer that he wants to have a war with Venezuela, and this is in 2017.
Yeah, the president's remarks to the room were along the lines of, I don't understand why we're not looking at Venezuela. Why are we not at war with Venezuela? They have all the oil and they're right on our back door. These were comments that caused us deep concern.
And that's not the first time he's talked about that. So there's other confirmation about that as well. It's not just McCabe's book. So like I said, let's get this message out to as many people as you can. Share this video. Post the link on Facebook, on Twitter, and any other social media you can think of, and email it out to others. And check out these other two videos for more context about this situation. And to boost this platform, please subscribe and click the bell. We can do this. We can prevent a war.